Shall we tap?
Tap, tap. You never tap at the same time as me.
I just tapped at the same time as you. I don't know what you're talking about.
I
I
was
literally
tapping
watched
for
you go
20
like
minutes.
this as you did this. No.
I'm sick of this. Just so everyone knows, the level of professionalism at the WOSO show is low. If anything, I'd give it 1 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd say that's
all 'cause of
accurate.
Sarah.
It's all.
So let's talk about probably the main. I think everyone knows what's coming. The She Believes tournament, which happened this week. We also are going to talk a little bit about the other international fixtures. It's international break, so of course that's the way it's going to go. And then we'll try and go around the world. But what I love about this week's Around the World is we're actually going around the world to countries, not to just fixtures. We're going country to country to country. So let's give everyone a quick debrief about the She Believes tournament first of all. Sarah, tell us about it a little bit and tell us who's involved.
The She Believes tournament is usually an annual tournament played in the United States, and 3 nations are invited, so 4 teams plus the US, and there are 3 match days, so every team will play a match. It's essentially like a group stage of a tournament, except for the winner at the end of the group stage wins the She Believes Cup. So this year we have the USA, Canada, Brazil, and Argentina. Argentina was a last-minute replacement for Japan.
Game 1 was Brazil versus Argentina. Talk to me. What did you make of it?
The Brazil-Argentina game was a really interesting one. I was very excited to see both of these countries and see how much they've been able to progress since 2019. Obviously, there are circumstances involved, and a lot of teams weren't able to progress too much because of COVID. But both of these countries have so much potential and so much talent that I was very excited for this. Brazil specifically came out really strong. They have a new coach, Pia Sundhage, who was the former coach of the US women's national team, former coach of the Swedish national team, and now coaches for Brazil. It was so clear when they came out on the field, the direction that Pia is taking the Brazilian national team. They are such a creative team and they have so much individual creativity. And it really looked like what Pia was doing was essentially trying to take that creativity and put it into a structure. So it became less about individual creativity and more about group combinations and group creativity. And it was really fun to watch the moments of magic really that happened in that game for Brazil. After watching that game, I turned off the TV and thought, in 3 years' time, Brazil is going to be a dangerous team for any opponent of theirs because they are just so dynamic and creative and they have that Brazilian style.
Yeah, it's so exciting, isn't it?
It's really, really exciting. I will say on the flip side, Argentina really couldn't handle their creativity, and I was severely disappointed in the defense and the, frankly, lack of organization that we saw from Argentina. This is a team that was in the 2019 World Cup. We saw them draw against Japan, drop just 1-0 to England, and draw against Scotland in the 2019 World Cup. And those are 3 very solid results. And to come out and drop 4-1 to Brazil is very disheartening, and it makes me feel like they need a stronger investment from their federation because they're not progressing.
One thing I will say, like, just as 2 nations, Brazil really, really has backed their women's football in general at both league level and internationally, but also their country backs it. Like 45 million people watched the Brazilians' inaugural game in the Women's World Cup. The country care about their women's team. Marta is a living legend in Brazil. There's murals of her on the wall and things like that. So, and when you look across that team, I just think the talent is completely there. And it's just about really nurturing that. And it's good to see so many of those Brazilian players in the NWSL and kind of playing in a professional league, but also there's plenty of leagues in South America on offer for women's footballers, which is amazing to see.
Absolutely. You mentioned a lot of Brazilians playing in the NWSL. I just have to shout out to Bina. I know that everybody who's a North Carolina Courage fan knows how amazing she is, but frankly, on the international stage, she is just so underrated. And she's so important for the Brazilian national team at that number 9 position and creates so many opportunities. She's just is so fun to watch, so I have to shout her out.
Oh my god, I like that you shouted out an NCC player without a single dig. I'm really proud of you. Well done. Give credit to Argentina, they did play in the Women's World Cup, and I just think every club that's played in the Women's World Cup has gone above and beyond 100 plus other countries. So for Argentina to be, one of I think they're 30th, 31 they're 31 joint in the world in terms of world ranking, and that's alongside countries like Wales, Ireland, Portugal. Argentina are up there and they're trying to invest in women's football, but I do see what you mean. They had a really good run out in the Women's World Cup, and it is a shame to see them kind of destroyed by Brazil. But then I don't know whether that says more about Brazil or more about Argentina. It's really difficult to tell.
Yeah, that's a good point.
USA versus Canada. I was so buzzing about this game. I managed to stay up. I stayed up till the 65th minute, which is about like 1:30 in the morning. So I think credit where credit's due. I did well before passing out in my chair. So talk to me. What did you make of it? Or do you want me to go first? Or what are you thinking?
I would love to hear you. So I would love for you to maybe shed some light on Canada, and then I can talk through US if that works.
So obviously it was a 1-0 win to the USA for anyone that didn't manage to catch it. And I think I don't think the result sort of flatters the game, because I think the result doesn't express how exciting and brilliant the game was from a neutral perspective. I really enjoyed it. I think 1-0 always sounds like a bit of a damp squib, but it definitely wasn't. It was enjoyable.
A damp squib?
A damp squib, darling. Is that a quid over there on the floor? I just found a quid.
I couldn't let that one pass. I've never heard that before.
So Canada, I was so impressed by Canada. And I don't want to bring it back to England, but I'm definitely going to end up going in that direction. They were obviously able to maintain a 43% possession of the game, which I think against the USA is really admirable, because US base their winning on high pressing, and if you have possession of the ball, obviously it's really exhausting to get the ball back, and if you're a high pressing team that constantly presses, then having to press for 43% of the game is really difficult. So fair play to Canada for doing that. And during the game, I actually wrote a tweet about Bev Priestman, who is the new Canadian team coach. For anyone that doesn't know, she was actually the assistant at England under Phil Neville. And I made a bit of a joke on our socials being like, don't know why we didn't just get rid of Phil and put Bev in place, because she's had a few sessions with that Canadian team. And from that USA game, you just can see the difference that she's made. Like, firstly, their possession, like I've just mentioned, it was so fearless against, like, not even arguably against the best team in the entire world. It was possession in those danger areas as well, in that final third, and that is really risky and really scary, but actually it shows intention to keep the ball no matter what. And if you're doing that successfully against the United States, which they were at times, and they were aggressive when they were trying to get it back, hashtag Fleming, oh my god, then you're really doing something right. She was passing and creating against a pressing team. As an England fan, I could just see what Phil was like trying to achieve, but I could see it actually working with that Canadian team. And just to be clear, I don't think that's a slight on the England team. I think the England back four are as capable, if not more capable, than the Canadian back four. I just think it's a slight on maybe Phil's method of making that happen. But I think Bev obviously has the ability to translate what she wants into that Canadian team and make it happen, because you just really saw flickers of it. All I'll say is, what's really depressing is the quality that they have up front, but their ability to finish. And I will come on to the next Canadian fixture and how we saw that play out massively. And just really big shout out to Bev Priestman, Northeast girl, and Northeast women are really capable. So a big nod to that.
I love everything you're saying. I'm just chuckling over here because somehow you were able to bring it all the way back to to Phil Neville and what he couldn't accomplish.
Any excuse. I feel so bad though, because this was about Canada. This fixture is about USA versus Canada. It's just, you naturally, as an England fan with an English coach, stood there on the sideline, someone that everybody knows was super capable. You just go, really, England? Like, really, the FA? Like, you've given her away to Canada. Like, what the hell, man?
Yep.
But anyway, over to the US. 1-0 win. So you got the points. You did what
got
you had
the
to
points. Maybe not deservingly, but did get the points. Everything you said about Canada, first of all, I just have to start out by saying, yes, props to Canada. Everything I'm about to say about the US is not necessarily saying that we were playing bad just because we were playing bad. Like, Canada was forcing the US into situations that were uncomfortable, and that's what led to a lot of, I want to say, the mishaps that we saw. So overall, I would say this was a frustrating game for a U.S. women's national team fan. We're used to seeing the U.S. have a very clear, cohesive strategy on offense, and despite being able to get 28 shots off, there was no rhyme or reason to any of the runs that were being made, any of the balls that were being played, specifically in the attacking third. It just kind of felt like almost this is going to be harsh, but almost like a pickup game level of, yeah, I'll make this run because this is a good run, and I'll play this ball because this is a good ball. There was no specific strategy, which I'll get into, but we started to see in the second U.S. game, which was really nice. Frankly, my takeaway from this game was there was a drastic shift when these three subs came on: Rose Lavelle, Alex Morgan, and Kristen Press. And the way the U.S. started to play the moment these three came on was the most night and day clear example of why certain players should be either rostered or starting over other players. It was really clear to me when they came on the field. The runs off the ball were not only better, they were more dynamic, and the team as a whole was able to make that final pass in the attacking third a little bit better. Specifically, I want to highlight that Lavelle came on for Macario in the number 10 role, and Morgan came on for Lloyd in the number 9 role. And I think that these two subs specifically are what really changed the dynamics of the game. I think that Macario needs more time in this system and more time in this team to be able to adjust and really be able to make the impact the way that she can make the impact. She's an incredibly dynamic, fantastic player who will make such a huge impact at that position or whatever position she ends up playing for this team. But I think that she needs more time in this team to be able to do so. In terms of Morgan versus Lloyd, Carly Lloyd worked so hard on defense, but it was just so clear that the way that the U.S. is able to play to Alex Morgan's feet and the way she's able to draw defenders off the ball as well is just so much more conducive to them being able to play in the dynamic way they want to play on offense.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to put it out there because the Canadians will want me to do so, and I've got to, as the neutral voice in this conversation.
Before you say this, I just want to highlight that we are now moving into match day number 2. So that concludes match day number 1 of the two.
No, stop avoiding it. Was it a penalty handball? This is what I thought you were there like, and we're moving on to match day 2. I'm going to go on to Canadians' problem in front of goal in a minute, but we're still on the match day that everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah, ask me about
still
it.
Match day 1. Is it handball? Do you think that?
No.
Okay.
Listen, I apologize to anybody who follows. I apologize to anybody who follows me on Twitter and had to watch that slight Twitter feud that I got in.
Oh, darling, they're used to following Helen football. They've seen the Twitter feuds.
No, that is not a handball. And what I actually never mentioned in my Twitter feud, which I really should have, was that there was a handball at the very beginning of the game on Canada in their defensive box that was not called also. So first of all, it went both ways. Neither were called. And I think that both of those decisions were the correct decision. There's no other way for me to describe it other than it's circumstantial, and you know it when you see it.
In my opinion, they're both penalties, but that's because of the letter of the law of the land, and unfortunately, unless you're within sort of a meter and it's like of the ball, I've just seen it happen so many times where the player's jumping, so their arms are out to let them lift their bodies into the air, and the ball hits their arm, and they're not even looking. You know, it's a penalty. If it's VAR, VAR calls that as a penalty just by the letter of the law. But what I will say is, it's an opinion, and we're all entitled to an opinion, and that's the worst and best thing about football in general. Do you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
A lot of the Canadian fans felt hard done by, and I think actually the thing you should feel really gutted about is your finishing, not about penalty decisions, because that's just my opinion. No, it's harsh, but then look, right, as an England fan, I watched us in the World Cup miss, 4 or 5? I don't even remember how many penalties. That's not USA's fault that we missed a penalty that we were given. Like, the amount of opportunities that were missed, I think that's where you should be putting your frustration and annoyance.
That's fair. I'd actually argue that they're allowed to be frustrated about that. However, that wasn't the only call that wasn't the only handball that wasn't called. So if you're going to be frustrated about that, then it pretty much cancels out, because there should have been a handball called against Canada in the box if you're going to use that as your line of thought. So
I felt like the refereeing was really bad in that game, and like I really don't want to insult referees. I know they work damn hard, and I know that they're trying their absolute best, but I just thought some of the decisions were really bad. And someone made a really good point online. I can't remember who it was. The Canada versus USA fixture is known as being a fiery one. You said that in preparation for this fixture, it'll be a fiery game.
Yep. And we saw it get pretty chippy also.
You saw it, and you saw these moments of brilliance, like Fleming, her fight on the floor. Like, you just think, this is a meaty game, not a single yellow card given. I just don't buy it. And I think the referee pulls out a couple of cards in those moments. I think it brings the level of the game down. I think people start to be a bit calmer. I feel both sides deserve to be frustrated, because I think some of the refereeing was off, in my opinion.
Yeah, on to match day number 2. So this happened on Sunday. Ooh, this was so much better. For exactly the reason that I was speaking to, in terms of being able to just see the way that the U.S. was trying to play. So this time we'd actually see the strategy that we were really looking to implement. So Rose Lavelle and Lindsay Horan were starting at the 8 and the 10, and we had Kristen Press on the wing, Williams on the other wing, and Morgan at the 9. So what we were seeing was the U.S. looking to pull Lindsay Horan as the 8 out onto the wing. So a lot of times what we saw was Lindsay Horan actually on the touchline with her back to the touchline as far wide as she could go. And then she was looking to combine on that line with Crystal Dunn and Kristen Press. So we have those 3 being able to combine out on the wing. And that opened up the whole middle of the field for Rose Lavelle and Alex Morgan. And that's the strategy. Like, being able to watch that game and see them try to implement that and seeing it work, it was just light years better. And to be able to see them effectively combine, start to get that final pass in the attacking third, and frankly, seeing the runs off the ball that Kristen Press, Alex Morgan, definitely Lynn Williams. I don't think she had her best game, but she obviously was still providing all of those fantastic runs off the ball. And Rose Lavelle, all of those runs that they were able to make off the ball were the reason for the change that we saw between the first game and the second game.
Can I just interject? Do you think, therefore, that Vlatko recognised what went wrong in the first game and then implemented the changes that you were saying should have been implemented?
Yes, and I think that this whole tournament for Vlatko was already sketched out in terms of who we're going to try in what position and at what time. So I do think that this starting lineup was already set in stone. I think that the first starting lineup was set in stone to see how Macario plays at the 10, for example, with Carly Lloyd at the 9. And then this starting lineup had Rose Lavelle at the 10 with Alex Morgan at the 9. I do think that was set in stone, but I absolutely think that he was able to see of course he was able to see that he saw what was going wrong. They worked on it, and they were then able to shift and make the adjustments for this game. And I think that they did a fantastic job of it. I do want to call out in my opinion, performances of the game were Crystal Dunn and Kristen Press. And I do want to make a comment on the back line. There's a lot of talk about the right back position. There's a lot of talk about how the back line played in this game. First of all, I just want to say that Brazil is a team with a lot of speed, and we're a back line that doesn't have too much of that. So that was always going to be a bit of an issue for us. The talk seems to be that people are concerned about the right back position and whose position that really is, and if that's a weak spot for us. I frankly don't think so. However, I will say that Ali Wagner did call out that Brazil... No, I don't want to say that. However, I will say that we were definitely caught on the counter a few too many times, and I think that this is something that the U.S. is very used to getting some flack for their back line, and they will work it out and be a strong, cohesive unit together. I don't think that it's worth commenting on even any further.
When you were just saying that, were you referencing down that left-hand side? You're saying that they were being caught on that left-hand side?
They were being caught down our right-hand side, Brazil's left-hand side. Before I move on from the USA, I do have to call out Megan Rapinoe's goal celebration, which was just really adorable. It was really highlight.
Oh, that's so nice. Auntie Megan.
Yeah, it was so cute.
Auntie
Megan. So I want to hear in this game, I will throw it over to you to talk about Brazil.
I was going to say, I don't want to move on until we've just given a little shout out to Brazil, because I just think they did show how dangerous they can be. They're currently ranked 8th in the world. And I think they're worthy of that position. There's obviously areas that they can improve in, but there's so many young Brazilian superstars coming through. I do see some players taking the place of those legendary older Brazilian players, which they have to retire at some point. I don't know when, because they're still going strong, but they have to retire at some point. Ali Wagner made the point that they were playing long balls instead of small combination plays, and that's probably not the way that you go and beat the USA. And I think that came as a product of defending so much, and that's what happens. You get tired and then you just go long, and it's... Let's be honest, the She Believes, although it is a tournament, there's a trophy at the end, it's training play, and I think that there are major learnings for both teams, for Brazil and for the USA coming out of that game. But for Brazil, it'll be about fitness, it'll be about creating more cohesion between the new players and the older players, and really working out how to beat teams like USA, because that's the next stage for them. We talked obviously about
absolutely
WSL football and about how do teams like Reading and Everton break into that top 4. There's teams like Brazil that'll be thinking, how do we break into that, top 3 of the world's best, which is probably USA, Germany, the Netherlands, France. On to the final She Believes game. Really enjoyable, but I'll hand over to you. It's Canada versus Argentina. What did you make of it?
Woof. I was holding my breath during this game because I genuinely thought this was going to end in a 0-0 draw, and I was just stunned by that because based on how Canada performed against the US in their first game and how Argentina performed in their first game, I thought this was going to be a 2-3-0 win for Canada. It was not. It was a very unexpected result, and quite frankly, this was a sloppy game. It was sloppy overall on both sides. I'll only speak to Canada though. There was, in the 22nd minute, there was a terrible clearance by Argentina, almost a wide open net for Canada, couldn't capitalize on it. 38th minute, Fleming missed an absolute wide open shot. She was unmarked in the 18. All she really needed to do was open up her hips and place that ball into the far corner, and she missed that. So another opportunity that they could not capitalize on. Minute 61, flip the tables, a really poor clearance by LeBay on Canada's side, and they got lucky that Argentina couldn't capitalize on that. So, sloppy game overall, I think, defensively and offensively. And they ended up scoring in the 92nd minute. It was a good goal off of a set piece, but based on how they had played and the missed opportunities for this game, you could say that it was a little lucky. They did have 63% of possession. They had 17 shots overall, so they were in control of this game. They were the ones who looked like the better side and ultimately did come out with those 3 points, so deservedly so. But not as clean of a performance as we saw in that first game against the USA. Also, it almost looked like a tale of two teams. So really hope that they can turn that around for their last game. It'll be very interesting matchup against Brazil. I think those teams will suit each other extremely well.
I feel like Canada are going to take so many learnings from this tournament. I think of all of the teams that have played in this tournament, it's going to be the biggest curb for Canada to go away and really go back to the drawing board. So I thought against Argentina, Bev had been saying, I want you to get shots away, as many shots as you possibly can. And they just weren't finishing. Like they just weren't creating enough or finishing enough. And the shots on target were poor. They really were poor. So I think the big takeaway for Canada will be about finishing. It will be about creating and finishing. In terms of everything else, it's amazing to see how confident they are on the ball. And as you say, 63% possession, which is what you'd expect for a Canadian team in the top 10 best in the world against an Argentinian team, 30th in the world. It's what you'd expect. And as you say, I am buzzing about that Canada versus Brazil game because I think it'll be the game of the tournament potentially.
Totally. I think it's going to be so fun to watch. And, finishing really is the final piece to come together for a team. I think you can see that in any team in this tournament. The U.S. isn't finishing like they usually finish. Brazil's missing some chances. I think you see that in every team, and that's just a product of not having played together for a really long time. So if that's the situation that Canada is in, where the final piece is really just being able to finish, that will come. I do think that cleaning up the organization on defense, because we really did see just two very different, drastically different performances. I don't want to forget to touch on Argentina in this game as well. What were your thoughts on how they came out against Canada?
Oh, just to reiterate, fair play to Argentina, slotted into this tourno, a few weeks ago because of the absence of Japan. We were talking 4 teams in the top 10, and then Argentina have come in to replace a top 10 team in the world, a World Cup winning team. That's confident in itself. But, they turned up, and I think they'll be really proud of their performances, but seeing the same issues as their first game, really quite unorganised in defence, leading to quite a lot of issues. But overall, I think that they've got a load of takeaways.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. They're playing 3 top teams that really are outside of their comfort zone and their level of play right now, and that's what makes them better, and that's how they'll grow as a team, and they are holding their own right now. It's not an easy tournament for them.
Can I make just a really quick brief comment on from that on world football? And I've said this a million times before, but just to reiterate, if you are the first number 1 team in the world in men's football, which is, I assume, France. I'm genuinely not looking at a computer right now, but I assume it's France. And you're playing a team in 30th. There is every chance that you will lose that game as France. That will be a tight game. We are seeing these cosmic differences between 1st, 2nd, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 30th in women's football because of the massive differences in funding. We're talking about a team like Thailand playing against the US women's national team. We're talking about a team, where they would have day jobs and be working in, at the local corner shop or whatever, and then playing against US women's national team in France at the World Cup. These are the differences between these countries at the moment. So I don't want to take anything away from Argentina.
That was really fun. I'm very excited to get to talk about more She Believes Cup games in next week's episode, because we have our final day of matches on Wednesday. So just want to quickly highlight Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, doing some quick math here. That's 9 p.m. UK time. We'll see Canada versus Brazil. That will be super fun on Wednesday. And then following that game is United States versus Argentina. That's 7 p.m. Eastern, which is midnight again your time, Helen. Sorry about that.
Oh, for God's sake, why?
It's prime time. It's prime time here.
For God's sake. So this week we are going to be doing Around the World, and as I already said, literally this week's Around the World is actually countries from around the world. How exciting. So I'm just going to highlight some of the standout fixtures for you, which mainly comes from world rankings. Belgium took on the Netherlands in what promised to be a really good battle. Belgium have had a crazy decade in women's football, actually, which has seen them rise up the rankings at rapid speed. In 2010 they were ranked 35th in the world. Now they've come up to 17th, but the European champions, the Netherlands, fourth in the world. They just tossed their neighbours aside 6-1 in quite an easy game. What I loved, though, was that all 6 goals from the Netherlands side came from a different player, including you know who, Miedema, Martens, Van der Donk, Roord. I mean, the list goes on, but all 6 goals, definitely a team effort. Absolutely love that.
Moving over into Germany. Germany also took on Belgium, so big week for Belgium in a 2-0 win on the 21st of February. And what's super exciting is Wednesday's game for Germany. We'll see second place Germany take on fourth place Netherlands in the ultimate European game. We'll see if we can get some streaming links up on our socials because that is just going to be such a fun game. I need to watch that, so I will be hunting for streaming links and I will be sharing what I find because woo-wee, that's going to be really fun.
France took on Switzerland in a really good battle and quite unexpected in my personal opinion. France ended up with a 2-0 win, but I was expecting them to really push aside that Switzerland team. What I loved about this one was that the 2 goals came from defenders. Wendy Renard, of course. As soon as you say a defender scored a goal for France, it's like, Wendy Renard scored for France. Here we go. But also Perle Moroni, who is playing at PSG this season. PSG sitting top of the French league, of course. 2 defenders providing the goals, which I thought was a pretty cool little fact of the day.
Super fun. France is just a really fun international squad to watch. And it's going to be exciting to see how dominant they are. Their performance, obviously, in the 2019 World Cup, I think that they deserve to be in one of the final matches. It's just how it fell. I don't need to get back into the 2019 World Cup. Sorry.
Enjoying reading them. Oh my God.
You know, we loved I think everybody in the world loved watching that France-USA game. So I don't feel bad calling it out.
I'm not even going to go back to that game, but I just, you know, when one of those football games where you're like, where were you when France played US? Totally. I was like,
oh yeah.
Anyway, we will move on.
We all know where we were.
I was
moving
crying.
on into
I'm joking.
Moving on into more international games, because this is a very exciting week of international games. Scotland beat Cyprus 10-0. We posted a really great goal from Caroline Weir on our socials that you should go check out because she is just on
I'm
fire.
Obsessed with Caroline Weir.
Absolutely obsessed. So fun to watch. Wow, what a result. 10-0. Maybe my favorite part of this is that nobody asked if it was like bad sportsmanship for them to beat them 10-0. Maybe that's my favorite part about this.
Of course that's your favorite part about this.
Just a decisive result from Scotland. It takes a strong squad to score 10 goals. I don't even care who they're playing. So my question to you, Helen, are we seeing a rise in the Scotland level of performance? Can we expect them to start competing with teams such as England, Germany, the Netherlands, the US?
All I'll say is I think that Scotland have a real track record of really bolstering and supporting equality in terms of gender equality specifically. They are just, as a nation, I just absolutely love Scotland. As a nation, they're so behind it. Obviously, we know that Glasgow City are really big on women's football. They've got a professional women's team. Their Scotland League is starting to be really well funded for women, and they're really funding their Scotland national team, and they wear their shirt with pride, the Scotland national team. People want to have Cuthbert on their back. Do I think that they can compete at the same level as England, Germany, USA, Netherlands, France, etc.? I'm not sure, just purely on the size of the country because it's such a small nation. But do they back their team? Hell yeah. Do they want it? Hell yeah. Will they go for it at the next Euros? Hell yeah. And I hope they do well. I really do wish them luck.
Absolutely. It's hard for a smaller nation, but you look at the pool of players that they're dealing with, and for a small nation, that's quite a pool of players.
Unbelievable.
So they're fun to watch. That was a ridiculous result. Moving on into another part of the UK, we're going to talk about England because there is actually a match coming up tomorrow. Well, I say tomorrow because I'm assuming that when you're listening to this, it's Tuesday when our episode drops. So the game is tomorrow, Wednesday.
I mean, we don't want to say
I can
too
restate
much,
that
do we?
maybe.
Or we could just pretend that we've already watched it so that when it releases, it sounds like we're really on it. Oh, God. Steph Horton was brilliant today, wasn't she? We just little anecdotal things.
Yeah, I said the game's on Wednesday. That's totally my bad. So
it's happening. We're releasing it today, so let's say it's happening today. It might be happening now, depending on when you're listening.
That's what I'm thinking. The game is on Tuesday at 7:30 a.m. Eastern, which is 12:30 UK time. So either you're listening to it before or after or instead of watching that game. And if you're listening to it instead of watching that game, we thank you for your dedication. But hit the pause button, go turn on the game, and then come back and listen.
Don't listen to this shit. What the hell are you doing?
Go watch some soccer.
I'm super excited for this fixture. Obviously, it's the first actual game rather than just England v England that we've had since before COVID, and also this is our first game free of the shackles of Phil Neville. It's so exciting.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so dramatic.
So then I want to ask you to maybe preview this game briefly for our listeners. Helen, please.
God, it's so hard for me to predict what's going to happen. I think that's the most exciting thing about tomorrow. I mean, today. I mean, whenever you're listening to this or watching this. I think the most exciting thing is that this isn't our permanent manager. So, like, does she need to prove anything? Probably not. So obviously we've got a stand-in coach until after the Olympics. And that's really exciting in a lot of ways because she's got really nothing to prove to England itself, and she might want to hit the ground running and get a massive win and really prove herself by playing, you know, the old boys, as it were, you know, the big guns, the Lucy Bronzes and the Steph Hortons. Or she might go, I want to start Lauren Hemp. Like, I want to put some young talent on there and really give them an opportunity to showcase themselves. So, to be honest, sorry I'm not going to be able to preview it in the sense that I can predict what the squad will be. I'm as excited as all of you to see what comes out tomorrow at about 11:30 a.m. as to what the squad's going to look like. And I think that'll give us a really good idea about what intention we're going to have. I will say it will be a massive, massive disappointment if we lose this fixture.
I do want to call out a little news. Millie Turner and Beth Mead were both called up 3 days ago to replace Millie Bright, who has a slight injury, along with Fran Kirby, who has, again, a slight injury. So those two called up because the other two are unable to play in the squad. So those two will not be available for anybody who looks at the starting lineup and is wondering where Millie Bright is in the back line.
Well, this week has been really exciting, and I'm so excited to review the final She Believes games and all the other international fixtures.
It's so exciting.
Happening.
It just makes my heart happy to see international soccer again. I know I'm speaking like a true, American USA person, whatever you want to call me when I say that. International soccer just hits different for me, but it does, and I love it, and this was so much fun, and everybody go watch the games, and we're going to talk more about them next week.
Awesome. Well, I've been Helen.
I've been Sarah.
And we are the Women's Soccer Show. We will speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.